Hey guys, this video is a showcase of all 8 unique unlocks for the Tarnished Blue Baby character from the Epiphany mod. If you don't know the character yet, then consider checking out my in-depth video guide of him as well, as it is needed to fully understand the effects of some of his unlocks. It is linked in the top right corner of the screen and the video description. The first of Tarnished Blue Baby's unlocks is the Rotten Core passive item, which is obtained by defeating Isaac, Blue Baby, Satan and the Lamp while playing as the character. This item will turn all small maggot enemies into friendly variants that can't hurt your character anymore, and you will instead be able to walk over them to consume them for a small temporary damage and tears buff. To be precise, eating a maggot will grant you plus 0.06 tear rate and plus 0.1 damage, which will decay over roughly 3 seconds. Eating multiple maggots in quick succession will stack both the stat boosts as well as their decay timer. The speed of the decay will increase after certain thresholds. The buff will decay 4 times faster while you have more than 10 stacks, and it will decay 10 times faster while you have more than 25 stacks, but it will slow down again when the buffs drop below those numbers. However, the small maggot enemy can usually only be found on the corpse floor, which would make the Rotten Core item pretty useless for the biggest part of the game, if that was its only effect. That's why it also has the ability to create those maggots on all floors by killing enemies. The amount of spawned maggots depends on the total HP of the killed foe. The more HP it has, the more maggots will spawn, up to a maximum of 4 maggots from a single enemy. The current floor will also affect the amount of spawned maggots. The further you progress through your run, the fewer maggots will appear from the same killed enemy, up to the point where no maggots will spawn at all if your victim's health was too low. This is most noticeable on very weak enemies like the basic fly, that only has 5 HP. While spawning a maggot on the first floor, they will already stop doing so on the second. Boss enemies will drop a lot more maggots, up to a maximum of 43, but they will only do so if you killed them in any special room, like for example the boss room itself. This limitation is in place so that you don't get tons of maggots in every single room on the endgame floors, which tend to be filled with multiple early game bosses. The Rotten Core also stacks quite well with itself. Each instance of the item will increase the maggot cap of regular enemies by 1, while also greatly boosting the amount of spawned maggots in general. I don't want to overload you by explaining the exact formula, but as you can see, it is totally worth using your diplopia on this item. Or maybe you are lucky enough to find it as a golden item, which is a mechanic unique to the Epiphany mod that doubles the effect of the item. The second unlock for Tarnished Blue Baby are the so-called Solied Shopkeepers. You get them by defeating Mega Satan with the character, and they have a 15% chance to replace any regular shopkeeper in the game once they are unlocked. Destroying a Solied Shopkeeper will result in 1 out of 5 possible outcomes at random. The 2 most common outcomes are either spawning 2 to 3 hostile dip enemies or 2 to 3 random friendly dips of the Dirty Mind item. Both results each have a 30% chance to occur. Then there is a 20% chance to spawn 2 to 3 random friendly flies of any type. These can either be those of the base game, as well as those of the Epiphany mod that can be created by some of Tarnished Blue Baby's creep mixtures. Going even lower, there is a 15% chance for the Solied Keeper to drop a random choice of its own themed set of poop and fly related trinkets, which you can see on the screen right now. And last but not least, there is also a respectable 5% chance for it to drop an item from its own dedicated themed item pool, which is also shown on the screen right now if you are curious. The next unlock is the Essence of Blue Baby, which is obtained by beating Hush and Boss Rush as Tarnished Blue Baby. The essences are a special consumable type unique to the Epiphany mod, and there's one for each character. In the case of Blue Baby, using his essence will cause your character to vomit 8 volleys of creep in random directions while your character is standing still. However, you can define the course of the volleys by simply shooting tears in the desired direction. Each shot will use one of Tarnished Blue Baby's 10 base creep types at random, and it will also be accompanied by a volley of small short-range tears. Remember, if you want to know what each creep type does, check out my in-depth guide for the character. The essences in Epiphany count as runes for all other mechanics in the game, which for example means that they can be copied with the Clear Rune active item. Just like each character having an essence to unlock, there is also a card unlock for each tarnished character if they beat Greedier mode. In the case of Tarnished Blue Baby, it is the reverse card against humanity. Using it has 2 effects. First, it will simply use a full copy of the flush item, which will fill the current room with water while transforming all regular enemies into poop obstacles. It will also insta-kill most poop-themed bosses in the game, just like the flush item usually does. On top of that, the card will also transform most rock obstacles in the room into friendly dip familiars. Regular rocks will turn into regular brown dips, while alt rocks like mushrooms and skulls turn into random dips. There are also 2 dedicated rock types with a fixed outcome. Using the card on bomb rocks will create petrified dips, while using it on fool's gold will create golden dips. 4 unlocks done, but there are still 4 more to come. If you like this showcase so far, then please consider subscribing to my channel. It would be much appreciated and keeps me motivated to make more videos like this. Anyway, back to the video with the next unlock, which is the cardboard cutout. This passive item is a familiar and also an awesome reference to the game The Legend of Bumbo, which is basically the canonical prequel to Isaac. It is unlocked by defeating Delirium as Tarnished Blue Baby. The cardboard cutout will follow your character and shoot tears in the same direction as you at a fixed rate of roughly 1.4 per second and a fixed damage of 3.5 per tear, independent of your character's stats. However, each projectile of your 2-dimensional friend will have one of 5 possible effects at random. These 5 tier types are all references to the 5 mana types in The Legend of Bumbo, which are Tooth, Bone, Booger, Pee and Poop. The Bone Shot has a 35% chance to trigger and will bounce off the first target and jump over to other nearby enemies without losing damage. The Tooth Shot also has a 35% chance to activate and will simply poison the enemy on hit. This poison ticks 2 times for your character's full damage stat each. The Booger Shot has a 20% chance to trigger and has an effect similar to the Sinus Infection item, meaning it will stick to your enemies and deal 3.5 points of ticking damage for 10 seconds or until the enemy dies. The Pea Shot has a 5% chance to occur and will spawn a small puddle of yellow creep on the ground when hitting an enemy. This creep ticks for 8 damage 3 times per second, just like the Lemon Mishap item. But other than the buffed version of the item in Repentance Plus, this puddle will despawn after 10 seconds. And last but not least, the Poop Shot also has a 5% chance to trigger, and it has the Equali item effect, which basically turns non-boss enemies into poop on hit. The cardboard cutout is a full-fledged Isaac familiar. It synergizes with all the items and trinkets you would expect, like BFFs, Baby Bender and Forgotten Lullaby, and it also contributes towards the conjoined transformation. Next up is the only trinket among Tarnished Blue Baby's unlocks, the Improvised Explosive Diarrhea, short IED, which is unlocked by beating Mata with the character. Holding the trinket will cause your character to leak creep for a brief moment whenever an explosion takes place on the screen. The explosion doesn't have to be caused by your own bombs. It can be from items, enemies, bomb rocks, TNT barrels, machines, basically anything you can think of. However, there's a brief cooldown between 2 possible activations of the trinket, so it won't keep triggering for each blast when you use something like Dr. Fetus. But as you can see, the synergy is still very powerful regardless. The creep can be any of the 10 base creep types of Tarnished Blue Baby at random, and its size and duration varies depending on the type, just like it would for the character. Getting Mom's box, 2 copies of the trinket or its golden version will cause a second type of creep to be leaked directly after the first one ends. This doesn't end at 2 though. You could in theory have as many smelted or gold IEDs as you want, and each one will add another creep to the line, which will even persist between rooms. 2 more to go, and this next one is very special. The Anal Fissure is a passive item that is unlocked by defeating the Beast as Tarnished Blue Baby. This item will spawn a stationary butthole at a random spot in each uncleared room. Stepping on the butthole will cause it to poke out of the ground and start shooting tears high into the air. The tears deal a fixed 3.5 points of damage regardless of your own stats. They are spectral and also slightly home in on nearby enemies, but most importantly, they also create puddles of creep where they land. The type of creep can once again be any type of the base creeps of Tarnished Blue Baby, but this item also has a 10% chance to create one of the character's 45 creep mixtures instead. The butthole will shoot its projectiles for 25 seconds or until you leave the room, and it can't be destroyed, neither by you nor your enemies, which makes it a very effective tool against bosses if you can lure them in. Getting multiple instances of the item will also spawn multiple buttholes in each room. one for each copy, and each butthole can have a different creep type applied to it. And last but not least, we have the mix item, which is Tarnished Blue Baby's starting pocket item. It can be unlocked in a trimmed version for all characters by getting all completion marks on Tarnished Blue Baby. Just holding the mix item in your active item slot will passively grant you the ability to find Tarnished Blue Baby's unique colostomy bags when damaging enemies, just as if you played the actual character. However, they will not replace bomb pickups and they will also not drop as room clear rewards. You also have to deal more damage to find a colostomy bag than you would have to on Tarnished Blue Baby. It is also worth to mention that there is a cap of 3 possible bag drops per room, so you can't farm them infinitely from respawning enemies. There are 10 different colostomy bags for the 10 base creep types, which I already mentioned a few times in this video. Collecting one of them will put it into the bucket, which you can see on the top of the item in your active slot. Using the mix item now will consume the bag and spawn a large puddle of its corresponding creep type on the ground below your character. Picking up a second different creep type while you already have one in the bucket will put them together and create one of the 45 possible creep mixtures. You can then use the item to consume the mixture and create a puddle of that specific creep mixture, which combines the properties of its 2 base types. If you try to collect another bag while you already have a mixture in your bucket, then this new bag will instantly burst and create a big puddle of its creep type where you stand, while also causing your character to leak additional creep for a few seconds. This also happens if you try to collect a base creep type that is already in your bucket, since there are no mixtures for 2 creeps of the same type. Once again, if you are curious about these mixtures but haven't watched my Tarnished Blue Baby guide yet, then I would recommend you to check it out now. It contains a fully detailed showcase of all 45 possible creep combinations, and some of them go really crazy. Anyway, that was my showcase of all 8 unlocks of the Tarnished Blue Baby character, and I really hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know in the comments if you want me to make the same guide for the unlocks of the other Tarnished characters as well. Either way, that was it for this video, and I look forward to seeing you again in the next one. Bye!
He's the number one,
Isaac!
God's favorite son. His flowing robes reach down from